Hey everybody, just a quick reminder you're going to see for a bit in some of the next few videos to remind everybody that I'm going to separate out the laser engraving from the knife sharpening, and we're starting its own channel for all the laser engraving stuff. I just wanted to remind you, if you enjoy the laser engraving, if you're interested in laser engraving, be sure to sign up for the new channel. I will put a link in the description of this video. It's also in the links on my page at the very top. The top link will bring you to the new channel. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. I have a really cool review that's going to be coming up soon that I think a lot of you knife sharpeners that are interested in maybe doing knife engravings might want to check out. So if you're interested in that content, make sure you check out the new channel. Hey everybody, it's Paul from Alexandria Knife Sharpening and Laser Engraving. Taking another look at the VEVOR machine over here. The other day I mentioned about wanting to do some type of different mounting of the angle guide on there, and I recently had picked up the replacement angle guide that Cliff Kerry started making, which I do like. It's a very nice part. And he showed how he didn't really show it, but he showed how he was managed to get that to fit on this platen here. And I don't know why, but for some reason when I looked at his video, it looked like he had a lot more clearance here, and he had mentioned that he ground this down. I don't know if he ground it flat, more flat down, or if he ground from the top down. So I'm kind of looking at that. But I did want to mention a couple other things. So to the right here, this is the Toolker machine. These are extremely similar, but they are different in some ways, and some of them are visible if you really look very, very close. But I mean, in general, they're entirely copied designs with some things that are slightly different. But one thing that Cliff said that I do completely disagree with what he said was, he said it's unsafe to attach this with a magnet. And I'm sorry, but on that one, I gotta completely disagree. I have had this angle guide attached to this Toolker sharpener for 3 years, and it's never had a problem. It has never come off. It does not move. And that's one of the differences between the Toolker and the VEVOR, is that most of the Toolkers, I don't want to say all, because like I said, we've all seen these can come with different parts and different things, but most of them had platens that were magnetic. And my method for attaching this has worked great. It has never slipped. I don't consider this unsafe in any way, shape, or form. And I'm going to show you here, like, it takes significant pressure for me to get this off with these rare earth magnets right behind here. So on that one, I'm going to say, sorry, Cliff. I love you, buddy, but there's times that we all don't agree. And this is one. I don't agree. I don't see anything wrong with attaching it this way. I know many guys out there who have attached it this way on the Toolker, have not had any problems. And I have zero intent of changing this one because this one works that well. Now that said, let's talk about the VEVOR. The VEVOR is another animal. And this one came with a non-magnetic platen. That has required some different things. What I did initially use on here, and I never loved it, but it worked, I used an extremely strong rare earth magnet on the back side of this that would hold the angle guide on. As long as you cut away the top part and we're just using like the casing of it, it would, just like the one that's next to it, hold it on there just fine. The problem with that one, and why I didn't love it, and it's the only reason I'm looking to change this one, is that magnet was so strong, it would even pull on the knife when I was sharpening. It didn't pull so hard. Some people might even like it because it did kind of keep it up against the angle guide. For me, it was just not something that I love. That has never happened with my Toolker. The two thin rare earth magnets have just enough power that they hold this really well in place. And like I said, it has never moved on me. I have zero fear that this is unsafe in any way, shape, or form on that one. Like I said, I just disagree with Cliff on that. I feel this is very safe. On this one, again, I don't feel that the magnet was unsafe, but it was just, unfortunately, it was just too strong. And it was so strong, it would attract also a lot of metal fragments. So this one, I do think if we can come up with a better solution for attaching this, that would be great. So I am going to see if I can find a way to get this on here. I'm going to show you the process. I think what Cliff was doing, because it was a short video where he showed it. I think he said he removed this screw and didn't put it back in, but I'm going to watch it again closely. But I'm still I'm a little confused on exactly what it is that he did there. But I believe he just removed this screw. He said he thinned this platen out, but when he said that, I don't know if he meant he did it fat way and made it skinnier, or I don't know why just lowering this might not be a better option. But the other thing I'm not seeing clearly how he's doing it is getting this on here. It just to me looks like it's gonna hit that wheel, but I don't know. Maybe that's the thinning he's talking about. I could see bringing this down, like filing or sanding this platen down a little bit so it was a little bit lower, so we get this in here. And I do believe if you, depending on where you're landing on the back here, this might be able to be right up against that platen with that screw out with no issues whatsoever. But let's find out. So let's take this sucker apart and see. You know, sometimes you don't know until you start taking things apart and seeing what you can do with it. But I love the idea. And I was like, wow, I never thought of that. I had many times thought of, replacing the platen, getting a platen that had more of a steel content in it and was more of a magnetic, or just finding something different to do with it to get that to work. That loosened surprisingly easy. That's interesting. Didn't expect that. The other thing I thought of too was, I think there's a couple options here of ways you could go, and I agree. A lot of guys has just drilled and tapped this and put a flush machine screw in and screwed their angle guide right into that. That would definitely work. I don't see why it wouldn't. I strongly believe there's a lot of ways that you could go with this and see. So I get the sneaky suspicion that what he did was squeeze this onto here. Let's see I wonder if we can get that to go on without even, do we definitely have to thin this? I think we might. Let's pull this out. Just curious if this will this go on at all? That is a lot of tension, and I'm not going to be able to slide that all the way up. Let me see if I'm going to get down on the floor and just kind of see if I can push this all the way in. Yeah, it doesn't want to do that. That might be some of why he thinned that. I think he brought this. I don't know that he necessarily thinned the platen, because I don't see, thinning the platen. I could see if I thinned it up top here, it might make this slip on better. But my concern is it not staying straight. But I guess if we just angled, if we angled that front piece, that would slide in there better. I could see that. So if we angled that front piece, if we took enough of that down, that would slide in better. And if we took some off of here, then I definitely think if we had this down lower, we run a far better chance of not having a clearance issue. Angling this a little thinner so it'll slide in there better might be better, but I think definitely shortening it so that we don't have an issue with this top wheel is the first answer there. I'm going to go over here on my 2x42. I'm just going to kind of wing it. All right. I'm going to angle this front piece on an angle so we can slide into that buckle guide a little bit better. And I'm going to go from there. Now I just want to... All right, so here's something I want to show you real quick. Fortunately, it looks like this can go on either direction, at least on mine. Doesn't matter, it'll thread on from either direction. And what I do like about that is I just noticed that if I grind the backside down on an angle, so you guys can see the angle that I'm using there. I turn this around the other way. What is happening, if I turn this with the angle like this, not like this, if I do it like this, it wants to push. If I do it like this, it wants to push away. But if I do this angle, watch what happens. It pulls it in. And it's staying tight. If we can get this all the way down, there's just no way around, at least for me. And with mine, I definitely have to lower the top part of this. So I need this same kind of an angle like that, but I need to drop the top of this down some. I'm going to whack this with a hammer. So here's what I want to show you. So I was able to tap this all the way in. It is all the way on the end there, and you can see it's holding nice and tight up against here. It's not pulling away. So you definitely want your angle pitched like that. But here's the problem. Okay? My wheel's going to hit that for sure. And even though I agree that, yes, this probably wouldn't need to be attached, but the first step is definitely going to be lowering. We got to lower this for sure. It can't be up that high. It can't be any place where it's going to be having contact with that wheel either. Like, you could definitely take some length off of this entire platen, because mine just does not have the clearance. It would be really nice if these wheels were adjustable like they are on my 2x42, where I could move these somewhat in and out and on this plate somewhat, but they are not. At least for me and for the way this one is, I have got to bring that down some more. The overall length of this thing, I feel like we need to bring this thing down significantly this way. I don't see the need for thinning the entire piece, and trying to thin that out. And then you're also going to, if you do that, you're definitely going to run the risk of not having a super flat platen, which I don't want to have that happen either. But I am going to go back here and see if we can reduce the overall length of this thing. Keep taking some material off. All right, let's check it just in case we don't want to accidentally remove too much at some point either, and then I've gone too far. That would not be cool either. All right, so our bottom could almost screw in there. It's still not enough. It's close. So if you go in, you want this angle facing the back, that angle cut. All right. And we are going to tap this all the way in. Yep, we're good there. So let's just see if we removed enough metal yet. We might have. That is working. I'm just amazed how close that platen is to that lower wheel. I never noticed it was that close. So there you go, guys. I think that... Now I still have to make the adjustments to this. These need a little more grinding, as you can see. I've never had one of these that were ground out enough. They just don't. You always gotta cut them more. Even the one I just did on to the right of this one, I had to cut that myself more. You'll notice I always put these on the opposite way. I find that it keeps the anything from hitting there, and I actually don't usually use, I use the knurled screw up top, but I reverse it, and then I usually put these on the bottom. So this is normally the one machine I use for 15 degrees. I'm curious to see if we can set it that low or if I'm gonna have to make angle guide adjustments. That looks fine. I don't think I'm gonna have to adjust that at all. So I may not have to grind more out here, only if I want less space between the angle guide and the belt. Okay, let's switch our tracking. Now come edge leading. Yeah. Really good. We're running well. No tracking issues. I can make minor adjustments here. We're well on the belt, the path, everything. Again, it's not bad. I think that's going to work well. All right, so kudos to Cliff for showing how to slip that down on there. I hope this helps some of you guys out a little bit more, with a little bit more detail of how to do that exactly. But once you get enough material off, and it, it might depend, it's going to depend on your wheel clearance, which I don't think is the same on all of these. So you might have to, everybody's might be a little different. You might have a little bit more that you're going to have to shave off. You might have a little bit less. But once you are clear of your wheels, you should be good to go with the rest of it. Good side view here. So no screw in the top here. This is pushing back against this. I find that angle cut I showed you is very important. It keeps this buckle guide from, instead of kicking out, it's actually kicking in. And if you do that, and then just adjust the length of your platen, you won't even have to thin your platen. You just have to adjust that top of your platen. And that's the only thing that I wasn't sure when what Cliff was talking about. I wasn't sure if he thinned the entire platen to get it to slide down. I think that might be what he did, but I don't think that's necessary. I think if you just shave the top, do that angle so that it's pushing against that spring and that it's forcing it to push back into that platen. And you will probably be good to go with making that conversion. And that is probably, for the VEVOR, I'm going to say that is probably the best way to do this, where you can still take everything apart. All right, so here's my finished platen. I believe this was 4 inches. I didn't measure it when I started, but I'm going to give you what its current measurement is finished. 92.14 in the millimeters. And that's what's working for me. So I think I shaved off probably almost a ½ inch off of this top. Now, the other thing I want to give you is the angle that I put this. I didn't get all crazy with tons and tons of measurements. My angle here is reading almost 14.5. And I used this angle guide to put that angle cut into here. So I shortened it, and then I started just cutting that angle until that would slip into that buckle guide well. But just to give you a little bit of an idea of what angle I used on my 2x42 to start adjusting that piece. And the angle, I'll do this in millimeters. Let's see. So the length of that part where it's angled is about 7.6 millimeters. At my thinnest point at the edge, it's 4 millimeters. Yeah, it's almost 4 exactly. I'm getting 3.99. So right around 4 millimeters there. And then at its thickest at the top, it's going back to the thickness of the platen. I didn't thin the entire platen at all. I'm getting 5.84 in millimeters. I'm getting 5.84 in thickness. Okay, so hopefully that might help some of you guys out. And like I said, and I brought that down to, it's right around 4 millimeters. So it doesn't come down to a point. It's just a nice little slope there. And I'll just show you this part one more time here. What I did was I took these two, put them together. Make sure your slope is pointing in. If you have it the other way, it's going to kick. It's going to want to kick the bottom of this guide out. And then just to make sure I was seated really well, all I did was I took a little impact hammer and tapped that all the way in. A couple little taps, and I just came back over and attached it with the one bottom screw. That's the only thing that's going to hold it now, is going to be this bottom one, but it will get support like Cliff had mentioned in the video. It does press up against the top part of the platen. even though there's nothing screwing into there, it will hold nice and snug. Let me show you. Let me turn this more. Make sure you guys can see that. And then since that's the only thing holding it, I just made sure I gave this a pretty good tightening. That's not going anywhere. If you notice that you're pitched a little bit one way or the other this way, when I had first done this, it looked like it was kind of sticking out and leaning forward. Just remember that you can unlock this and you can kind of pitch this any way you want, because, you know, some people even like to turn it and sharpen this way. It doesn't really matter, whatever works for your comfort. I've always kind of liked the straight up and down, has always worked best for my tracking. And since I have the height adjustable table that I use here, I just kind of run in this kind of manner. This is the way I set it up. And I've showed you guys before, for quick angle changes, I just use the little wedges, but we are good to go. Another thing that's different, I just wanted to touch on this too, between the Toolker and the Vevor. Well, I talked about certain parts being magnetic, being that a magnet will stick to them. And that's one of the main differences that I've seen in this machine. So the Toolker's base is magnetic. So I have these on-off magnets, and I just want to show this too. People sometimes ask, like, they'll tell me, oh, it's moving. How do I keep mine in place? You'll see I have these on-off magnets, and I use these to hold my machines in place. Now on the Vevor, I use 2 of them. I put one in the back, and I put one on the side here. And then I will lock these down. And that being on top of this steel downdraft table will hold it in place, and I don't really have to worry about this thing sliding around. The other nice advantage of that is that these on-off magnets attract a lot of the metal, and since they can be turned off, I can shut it off and easily vacuum off any of the metal that's left behind. So it's just another way to kind of collect the dust. So that's one reason I like those. But you can also use a clamp if you need to. So sometimes I have clamped these down. That works just fine. But that's the biggest difference that I've noticed between these two machines, is that, you know, magnets will stick to almost this entire machine. And on this one, we have a bunch of parts that if you thought it was just like the Toolker and you're expecting like, oh, this is going to, you know, I'll be able to put 2 nice rare earth magnets on that platen and just slap that on there. It just doesn't always come that way. Unfortunately, they have all been a little bit different. And there's also a couple other manufacturers out there too that are making very similar machines with a little bit of work on any of these things. And you guys can go back and look at my other videos. You know, like I laser etched my wheels on every one of my sharpeners. That solved all the tracking issues that any of these ever had. I'm using all the original wheels from doing that laser etching. Now that is something I do offer. You can send me your wheels and I will etch them for you if you think you need that. Other people have replaced the tracking wheel, so there's that. You can look at my videos and take a look and see there's a bunch of ways to do that. Like in the very beginning, I used tape, and you'll see I've never even taken it off. I do have some tape on this drive wheel back here. I just haven't bothered to take it off. It's really not doing anything anymore since I corrected all of these wheels. I just haven't bothered to take it off. Anything that can add kind of surface tension to your wheels sometimes will help you get that adjusted. The biggest issue that I see when people are having tracking issues is usually they have the belt too tight. On my machines, I tend to run this shaft as far in as it can go. The more I pull this out, it's going to add more tension to everything and to the belts. Try and get it running straight and then slowly make adjustments to see how things are affected by what you do. But that's been probably the #1 thing that I usually find, and when people have sent me pictures and stuff, usually what I've seen is they tend to have this arm out quite a bit, and they have an incredible amount of tension on the belt, and I think far more tension than they need. And whenever I've had way too much tension, that's when I will see some tracking issues. I always bring this, for me, I bring this all the way in, and I try not to over tension a belt. I want it snug, but I still want a little bit, you know, give you a quick look here. I want it snug, but I still want a little bit of play in there. I don't want it so, you know, rock solid that it's got no push to it whatsoever. All right, hope those few things help you guys out. If you decide to do that conversion for your VEVOR, I think you'll be really happy with it. It's running great. And this additional part that you can get from Curry's Custom Cutlery is a nice addition. It really does a great job of helping you sharpen things, especially knives with a bolster. I just did this whole set, and you can see it saves you from having to run your tracking off of your main wheel. And you can still do it, and there might be some that you might run into still, but we have a lot more room now where we're not running into this part of the knife, which, you know, kind of tend to cant things out. If you're still using, you know, the older, if you don't have the converted ones, no big deal. You can, like I've shown, just run your belt off tracked left or off tracked right a little bit, and that will help you hit some of those more difficult to reach areas. And if you really want to have probably the most access to the belt that I've seen, then I would pick up one of these from Cliff Curry. I think he's out. So when I posted the video the other day, they were still in stock on just this part. He hasn't had the full piece for a while. That's been sold out, but he did have just this piece. But I think they are currently now sold out. Hopefully he'll be getting them back in soon.